Session to order, and we'll start with, let me see, page 1, Director Blades for Bill 4821.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of council. The administration is requesting your approval of Council Bill 4821 to amend the pension and retirement article of the county code. The bill as submitted has 3 primary changes. First, it brings county law into compliance with the Federal Uniformed Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act, USERA, by allowing members who are receiving a military pension to be eligible for up to 4 years of creditable service in the county retirement system. We have historically allowed up to 4 years of creditable service if the member was not receiving a military pension. Currently, we do not know the actual fiscal cost this will have on the retirement system, as we do not know the number of members that will be impacted. Again, we're amending the code to be compliant with federal law. Second is the administration negotiated a change with the FOP during labor negotiations. Under current law, FOP members are eligible to receive an optional allowance to their pension known as Option 7. This survivalship option allows 50% of the retirement benefit to be paid to the officer's beneficiary upon death at no cost to the member and requires 25 years of service as a sworn police officer. The amendment changes it to 25 years of creditable service. This is intended to enhance recruitment efforts of police officers from other jurisdictions into lateral classes. The actuary estimates the first year cost of this change to be $491,000, which will be included in the FY23 operating budget. And finally, the bill provides technical corrections to update sections 5-1-219, 5-1-230, and 5-1 and 305 of the county code to comply with Council Bill 3620 that was passed last year, and this will be retroactive to its effective date of July 1st, 2020. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director Blades. Sounds like good policy to me. I certainly like the idea with the veterans, because I always felt like if you retired, you're getting the short end of the stick. Yet, if you just did 8 years, you receive the benefit. So, any questions or comments from the members? Okay, thank you very much, Director Blades. We'll move on to Leonard Howie, page 4, Bill 4921.
Bill 4921. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. The administration requests approval of $75,500 in grant funding from the Cities for Financial Empowerment, the CFE fund. This is the second installment of the CFE grant, the first being a planning grant that was awarded previously. It will be provided in 2 installments, $47,000 from this past March to March 22, and $28,000 from November 21 to November 22. We're going to use these funds to support the integration of financial education and banking options into the Summer Youth Employment Program. We are doing this in partnership with the Maryland Cash Campaign, and we're going to structure our training for the youth around 3 steps to ensure banking success. One is to educate them on the benefits of banking and how to safely use their accounts. The second is to actually open non-custodial, in many cases, their first non-custodial accounts. And then third, educate them on how to regularly and safely use their account, which can be facilitated by a direct deposit of the money that they earned during the summer. So we're excited with this opportunity, and again, just help the youth to prepare for the future.
So, Director Howie, sounds like a pretty good program. Does the program include anything about credit?
I do believe they talk about the credit, of course, and how not to get in trouble with it. But really, the first step is just to understand the whole nature, of the bank account itself, and then all the credit discussions. In fact, when you sit in on some of these classes with the youth, that's one of the first questions they have anyway, about credit cards. So that always gets addressed.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the members? Okay, moving right along to page 8, Bill 5021.
Okay, Bill 5021, this is the department requests approval of the Maryland Relief Act grant funding in the amount of $903,000 from the State Department of Labor. This is one of those great instances where this is other people's money that we get to spend. But in this case, we're using it to purchase 2 mobile career centers. We will deploy these centers largely in Alice communities in an effort to engage more residents and provide services to those communities that have really been hit hardest by the pandemic. We expect the mobile centers to be on the road in late summer, early fall. This is all part of our strategic effort to offer services that are available at our 3 American Job Centers and to make them absolutely more accessible, especially to those populations that have been hit the hardest by the pandemic.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Howie. Any questions or comments? Yes, Councilwoman Bevins.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Howie, I'm just curious, are the rolls on the unemployment staying the same, or are they been increasing or decreasing over the last couple of weeks with some of the mandates being lifted?
Unemployment numbers have been going down slowly, but they have been going down. And what I think is going to, I apologize, is my video not even on? I'm actually just looking up and I'm seeing that my video's not on.
No video and muffled audio, if you must know.
No, wow, that is.
Is the audio better, at least?
Audio's much better.
Okay. I am so sorry about that. And then for
Can't
the
say much,
camera.
but there's your video.
Okay, but still this okay, the I'm sorry, Councilmember Evans, the
unemployment numbers.
yes, yeah, they've been going down slowly, but what we do expect to happen is that the state is lifting their they had removed the requirement for individuals on unemployment to actually conduct job searches during the pandemic. So there was no need for them to contact us for assistance. But that relief is expiring this month. And so all the individuals on unemployment will have to start the job search. So then we do expect a large uptake in the use of our services.
Okay, I know that you're not the state and you can't answer this question, but maybe you can help me wrap my head around it. I know a lot of folks in the food and beverage industry and the managers and general managers have been saying they've had a particularly hard time getting people to come back to work because they are making more money on unemployment. And I know back in the day when you were on unemployment, you had to prove that you were searching for a job. But once your employer calls you and says, we have the same hours, the same days, and we want you to report to work on such and such a date, how come their benefits aren't being taken away once their employer has offered their hours back?
When the pandemic first hit, that was a major topic of discussion. But the decision was made to really allow the individuals who are in that situation to don't bother them, don't stress them out with the job search requirement. And accompanying that was for the employers not to take any adverse actions if they do not come back, such as trying to, as you indicated, trying to take their benefits. It was enough. I think we heard these stories all across the state that the job was offered for them to come back and they just did not want to. Now, they weren't required to hold the job at all for them, but they weren't to take punitive measures against them because they were with the expanded benefits, as you recall. It did allow those in those particular situations to do okay, relatively speaking, by not taking those positions.
Right. I think it's kind of now come back and bite us a little bit because there's so many now hiring signs on almost any retail, restaurant, any kind of service industry. There, you see it on every single door and window,
Right.
hiring. If you have been out to dine lately, there's an extraordinary long wait to get your order and to get good service because they just can't get people back to work. So I'm guessing that may change when the bonus comes off. Is that in July? When
Yeah,
the
that,
300
yes,
bonus comes?
so, right, so when the added incentives stop flowing, and quite frankly, when some of the other financial pressures that a lot of people have been under, when they start resuming, I'm sure you will hear, I'm sure you've heard from many of your constituents, issues of the benefits cliff, that whole concept that when the funds start running out, and more importantly, when courts start to have their dockets full and start hearing foreclosure, eviction, and other personal financial matters, that will be an additional motivation for individuals to start taking the employment that's out there.
I think that you're right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Any additional questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Now we'll move on to page 21. And we'll have the Honorable Judge Fisher.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. It's been a long time since I've seen you. Thanks for having me today. So yeah, this is a request for the $10,000 in funding. We have a very small budget and a very small staff, and our judicial assistant decided to retire rather more suddenly than we thought based on COVID, who'd been with the county for, I think, 35 years. And so the payout for her vacation, she'd worked for other offices previously and other judges, was way beyond anything that our budget could absorb. And then we unfortunately also had an employee who was injured and was out for, I think it was 2.5 months. So we had to have someone come in and temporarily fill that position. So these are kind of a one-time crazy year of funding requests that luckily some of our other funds were offset. So it wasn't as much as we initially thought it was going to have to be, but I think it's about a little under $10,000 to kind of remedy these issues. So.
Thank you very, very much. Are any questions or comments from the members?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I had the opportunity to visit with our Orphans Court judges, and Ms. Fisher, I just want to thank you for your exceptional service, all three of you.
Thank you. We appreciate it. We do our best, but hopefully we'll see you guys out in the campaign trail this year. So.
Okay.
With that, I may ask permission to be excused from the remainder of your meeting.
Yes, absolutely. Let's make sure. Are there any additional questions or comments? No, you are excused, Judge Fisher. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you.
Thank you all for your time. We appreciate it. Have a good one.
Sure. All right. Next, we'll move on to page 24. Miss Katie Brown, who's asking for a bat as well.
Hi, yes. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Yep. Due to unexpected additional costs for the past election year, we need to ask for a $375,000 additional dollars. This will help cover some of the postage costs and quarterly state billing.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Brown. Are there any questions or comments from the members?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Councilman.
So, Ms. Brown, how did you said it to address the quarterly state billing? So is that how it works, is that we are billed by the state for to run elections in our county?
Right, yes, a lot of it was PPE, and then the additional postage costs were where we had to reimburse the state the cost for mailings that they put out. So yes, they bill us and they bill the county, and then the county reimburses the state.
Is that specific to the pandemic, or is this kind of a normal thing that happens each election cycle?
No, that's normal. The state will purchase things, and then we reimburse them for that. Equipment, paper, the paper for the mail-in ballots, the envelope printing, and other costs that we get billed for quarterly. And that's all part of our budget, but it just came up over above the budget that was estimated.
Okay, so that's because of the pandemic.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
this cost is, yes.
Typically during election year, absent of a pandemic, a normal election year, we would reimburse them with what's within our budget.
Correct, yes.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? Yes, Director Blades.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While I have Katie here, great job this year, Katie, but I just wanted to point out for FY22, it's very important, the primary is June 28th, 2 days before the end of the fiscal year. So if we don't, if things explode during the budget next year, during the primary, we're gonna have to move quickly with any other bets next year.
Right, you have to remember that it takes a couple weeks for us to pay the election judges, and that funding is in there that will have to be held over to pay out for them also. And then we don't know what redistricting will do as far as additional precincts or voting locations that will be needed, and if we want to add an additional early voting site.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments? Thank you very much, Ms. Brown. Have yourself a great day.
Thank you, you too. Goodbye, everyone.
Next, we'll move on to page 27. Mr. Whit Tanliff.
Hi, thank you. I'm Whit Tantliff, Director of Budget and Reporting at BCPS. And in front of you, you find a budget appropriation transfer request. BCPS budget consists of 13 separate appropriations by activities prescribed by the Maryland State Department of Education. Transfers of funds between activities requires approval from the Board of Ed and the County Council. Based on close monitoring of expenditures through the first 3 quarters of FY 2021, our current full year expense projections show an overall surplus, but with shortfalls in some activities and surpluses in others. Because BCPS carries no contingency budget, the only way to manage unanticipated expenses during the year is via amendments to the budget. We are projecting that overall we'll finish the year under budget, but available funds of $565,000 are coming from mid-level administration due to vacancy-related salary savings. $7.4 million can be transferred from instructional salaries due to position vacancies. $2.8 million is coming from student transportation to reallocate salary savings from vacancies. $2.3 million is coming from operation of plant due to vacancy-related salary savings. And $2.9 is available to be transferred from fixed charges due to fringe benefits associated with vacancies. We'll be transferring $3.6 million into administration to provide funds for a new firewall at the Towson Data Center, backup system for the new cloud-based ERP system, the ERP cloud transition, which will also, some of those expenses will be offset by the superintendent's mandated reductions of $1.1 million in that category, which help fund our 1% COLA this year. There were also some contracted services savings of $432,000 that the superintendent reduced. A requested transfer of $4.7 million into instructional textbooks and supplies is self-funded from other C&I activities and will provide funds required for the purchase of FY22 textbooks for mathematics, bridges, calculus, geometry, statistics, algebra 1, and instructional supplies and materials. A transfer of $1 million into other instructional costs will provide funds required for school photocopier leases and out-of-county living arrangements. Funds of $3.8 million are requested transfer to special ed to provide funds required for non-public placement and parent reimbursements. Finally, funds of $2.7 million are requested for transfer into maintenance of plant to provide funds required for plumbing, ventilation, and other service contracts. I'm now happy to take any questions you may have.
Okay, Councilman Quirk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple questions. I guess the first one is, what's the difference from 3502 versus 3501, mid-level administration versus administration?
Sure. Mid-level administration generally refers to principals and assistant principals, so the management of the schoolhouse. Almost all those positions are school-based, so there's some also in curriculum and instructions. And activity 1 is administration, which would include all of human resources, staffing, the payroll office, all of the financial offices, accounting, budget, et cetera. So that's the primary difference. And it would also include most of the senior executive team and the superintendent.
And so is mid-level administration, bottom line, it's the principals inside BCPS and the assistant principals, is that right?
Yes, almost all of it. There are some equivalent positions that are based at CNI.
And then the administration is not just the executive level, but it's a lot of other things that go into it as well.
Yes, the majority of it is support structure that really keeps the back rooms running at BCPS.
Okay, so it's not just salaries, it's a whole bunch of other things as well.
It's mostly salaries, but it certainly is a number of other things.
Is the 3.6 million adjustment mostly salaries, or do we have a more specific breakdown on that for that?
Well, the 3.6 million transfer into administration was covered 2 million for a new firewall at the Towson data center and backup system for our ERP system and our transition to the cloud after the ransomware hit, which was about $2 million.
Okay. So most of it was on very, very needed, definitely needed transfers. I see that.
Sure. And there's absolutely some technology costs in activity 1. All the devices that get a lot of discussion over time are actually in other instructional costs. That's where our leases are.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions or comments? Hearing none. I believe we still have you here, Mr. Witt.
For the supplemental on our grant.
Yes. Page 53, everyone. Resolution 70-21. Councilman Marks? I can't hear you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This resolution amends the Perry Hall Community Plan.
Wait a minute, Councilman Marks. We're not, I had a question for you about page 53, resolution 70-21. You're 71-21.
Oh, you called on me though.
Right. I was curious about the text you had sent me, but
yeah. No, it's a separate resolution.
Okay. Mr. Witt, you can go right ahead, sir.
Sure.
I apologize.
No, thank you very much.
Sure.
Each year, our budget is amended when funds are transferred between MSD activities. The categories established by MSD each represent an appropriation of funds for specific purposes. Legislative bodies must appropriate or authorize the use of funds by law. Infrequently, unanticipated revenues are provided, often by the federal government, to local education agencies. This occurred during the 2008 financial crisis when ARA funds were provided to sustain local education associations when tax revenues eroded. Another such event, the global pandemic, brought about extraordinary federal action by 2 administrations to provide 4 separate grants of additional funds to state and local agencies. As we've discussed throughout the year, CARES Act revenues to date total over $150 million. These funds were not known or anticipated on March 1st, 2020, when the FY 2021 budget was forwarded to the county executive. The first grant award was made on June 26, 2020, and 3 successive grants followed through the summer and fall of 2020. The FY 2021 budget must now be amended to reflect the availability and use of these funds. The special revenue budget has always included an allowance of approximately $5 million for undesignated grants that may be awarded during the upcoming fiscal year. This process has worked well. During FY 2021, the above referenced emergency federal grants awarded in response to the pandemic exceeded the value of the undesignated grant awards. To comply with accepted governmental accounting principles and state and local regulations, it's necessary to amend the FY 2021 adopted special revenue budget to reflect these grant awards. The last special revenue supplemental budget appropriation was presented in 2015 to appropriate a larger than anticipated Title I grant award. An operating budget supplemental appropriation of special revenue grant funds in the amount of $54,529,564 is before you for approval. The supplement includes funds for the following grants after the FY 2021 budget was finalized. $19.2 million from the Elementary and Secondary Schools Emergency Relief Fund, commonly called ESSER, and also commonly just called CARES 1 because it's under the CARES Act. There was $10.5 million from the Coronavirus Relief Fund for Technology, $12.8 million from the Coronavirus Relief Fund for Tutoring, $1.3 million for the Governor's Emergency Relief Fund, also called GEAR, $150,000 from the Governor's Office of Rural Broadband, $668,000 is related to carryover of the Blueprint Concentration of Poverty Grant, $375,000 from the Baltimore County Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act grant, $276,000 is related to Infants and Toddlers Blueprint Grant, $1.995 million is related to the Special Education Pass-Through Grant, $6.5 million is related to Title I carryover funds, and $89,000 is from the MABE Risk Management Grant. Now I'll be happy to take any questions you may have.
Any questions or comments from the members? Thank you very much, Mr. Witt. Now we'll move on to page 31, Deb Schendel.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you today?
Oh, great.
Good. I have fiscal matter. The administration is requesting an amendment to a contract with Daikin applied to continue repairing and maintaining a Daikin chiller system in the historic courthouse and the county courts building. The proposed amendment increased the maximum compensation by $206,891 from the $110,792 to $317,673 for the entire 10-year term for the contract, including the renewal periods. The original contract commenced December 1st of 2015 and will expire in 2025. The original procurement was a 902F. This current contract provides labor supervision, tools and equipment, and miscellaneous items necessary to maintain and repair the proprietary air conditioning chiller system in the historic courthouse and the county office building. The county courts building. This includes 6 inspections annually of 1 chiller in the historic courthouse and 8 inspections annually in the 2 chillers we have in the county courts building. One of the questions that was asked of us, or the only question that was asked us from the auditors I'd like to address while I'm testifying, is the question has the contractor provided any additional services for which the county has not been billed yet? And if so, and if the value of such services exceeds the $1,624, what is the justification for exceeding the contract's maximum compensation? And the answer is no, we will not exceed that. We will begin our preventive maintenance again come July 1st. And so we will have the not to exceed limit already approved by all of you before we do any further work. That ends my testimony. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer it for you.
Okay, any questions or comments from the members? Hearing none, thank you very much, Ms. Shindle. Now we'll move on to page 38. Ms. DeAndrea Walker. Advanced Scale of Maryland.
Good afternoon, members of the council.
Good afternoon, Ms. Walker.
The administration is requesting an amendment to a contract with Advanced Scales of Maryland LLC for the continued certified preventive maintenance, calibration, inspection, and repair services for our truck scales at our 3 solid waste facilities. The proposed amendment increases the maximum compensation by $149,876 from $100,124 to $250,000 for the entire 5-year and 3-month term of the contract, including the renewal and the extension periods. Under this proposed amendment specifically, the contractor will continue to provide all supervision, labor, materials, equipment, and mobilization as it relates to the necessary preventive maintenance. And the contractor's hourly rates for the certified repair is anywhere from $90 to $135, depending on regular or overtime status. The proposed amendment, just so that you know, is necessary because when the original contract was awarded, we had recently assumed operations at the Central and Western acceptance facilities and did not have the historical information on the funding that will be needed to keep the truck scales at those locations operational, thus resulting in the underestimation compensation cap. Throughout this was a competitive bid at the time, and it was based on the low bid, and there were 3 bids that were received. There were 3 questions that came from the auditor that I'd like to address as well. The first one was, when does the department expect the Central Acceptance Facility scales to be replaced and any future repairs? We currently have a procurement in place to replace those scales in our procurement department right now, out for bid to replace those scales. And those scales, when they are replaced, will have a 1-year warranty on those scales. A second question was the Central Acceptance Facility scales replacement project considered when we determined the value of this contract? Yes, it was, and that's why we didn't ask for as much, because we knew that there would be a warranty once we got those scales in place. And then the third question was, at the current pace of use, what is the anticipated useful life remaining of the other existing equipment and the anticipated useful life for the new equipment? So we have several scales. The useful life of a scale should be a minimum of 10 years. Currently at the WAF, we have 3 scales that are new and they are under warranty. 2 of the CAF scales, which I talked about earlier, require replacement, which is in procurement. And then we have 4 others at the Central Acceptance Facility, and those scales are in good condition. And then at the Eastern one, we have 6 scales, which are also in good condition. One of the things we wanted to mention is that these scales have 16 load cells, and every day they weigh anything from 40-ton vehicles stopping and accelerating and going on, and that's why we need so much maintenance, because these are heavy-duty scales for 40-ton vehicles. So that concludes my testimony, and I'll answer any questions you may have.
Any questions or comments from the members? Okay, moving right along. Page 42, Ms. Walker, Broadview Waste Solutions.
So the administration is requesting approval of a contract with Broadview Waste Solutions to provide recycling services for fluorescent lamps and ballots collections at the county's 3 residential drop-off centers. This contract will commence upon council approval and will continue for 1 year and will renew automatically for 4 additional 1-year periods with the option to extend the initial term or any renewal an additional 120 days. The compensation for this contract may not exceed $240,000 over the entire 5-year, 4-month period, including the renewal and the extension periods. And then the county provides appropriate reciprocals at its 3 residential drop-off centers so that our residents can have the ability to drop off their light bulbs. And it is also noted that this contract was a competitive procurement as well and a low bid where we received 3 bids. That concludes my testimony. If you have any questions.
No, ma'am, not from I. Any questions or comments from the members? Thank you very much, Ms. Walker. We certainly appreciate your testimony today. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Sure. And next we'll move on to Councilman Marks. Page 57.
Good. So this is the resolution.
Yes.
Okay, very good. This resolution amends the Perry Hall Community Plan. It simply puts in there some language that encourages the development of traffic control devices or other practices to help with speeding along Honeygo Boulevard. It also says that there might be instances where communities do not want to be connected to other neighborhoods, and they may want to have green buffers separating them from other neighborhoods.
Any questions or comment from any of the members? Thank you very much, Councilman Marks.
Thank you.
Now we move on to page 45, Ms. Laura Raleigh.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the County Council. The administration is requesting approval of 23 contracts to provide assisted living care for eligible county residents age 62 and older who meet income and eligibility requirements. Each contract commences July 1st, 2021, continuing through June 30th, 2022, with renewing automatically for 4 additional 1-year periods. The county will pay the contractors up to $1,000 per month per client based on the client's contribution of income at a rate to be determined by state guidelines. Estimated compensation totals $789,718 for fiscal year 22, $3,948,590 for the entire 5-year term. This was done through a non-competitive solicitation of all licensed assisted living. And I understand that there was an auditor question. Also, there is one contractor that is not in good standing with the state. We've been in conversation with her today. She has filed everything today, and we expect that the state website will be updated to show that she is in compliance by tomorrow. And
Okay. Any question or comments from the members?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Councilman Patoka.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Riley, looking at the 24 contractors or the 24 contracts, do you feel like there's good geographic distribution throughout Baltimore County for these so that we're able to address the needs of older residents throughout the county?
Actually, I do not feel that they're well represented all across the county, and that is an issue that we have been trying very hard to deal with. Unfortunately, we did a solicitation of all the assisted livings that are licensed in Baltimore County, and these are the only ones who were able to come forward and meet the criteria. So we will take them off cycle. If another assisted living becomes available, we will definitely work with them to do a contract off of this schedule. But we often have difficulty getting fair representation around the entire county, and any suggestions are welcome.
Do you have a sense, is it because of what we offer as compensation, or is there a reason that we don't have good geographic distribution?
The amount of money that we subsidize is actually dictated by the state. This is a state-funded program, so we cannot change that. It did just go up though. Up until this year, it was only $650 per month that we could subsidize the person's income, but it did just get increased to $1,000 on the state level. I do believe what we hear from some of the providers is they are not able or willing to pay the insurance rate that the county requires them to have. And so that does keep some people from going into contract with Baltimore County.
That, because it seems like you should be able to be close to your family members. I was just trying to assess whether this is something systemic, or if a council member can help in his or her district, or if it's one of these issues that Ms. Rogers methodically unravels and tries to put back together.
Yeah, I mean, we always will work with a provider. If a family member identifies a facility they'd like us to contract with, or if a facility notifies us, we will definitely work with them. But what we often find is the liability insurance is a deterrent for some of the smaller businesses. Some of these are very small, operating out of private homes, and they do not see the benefit of having that level of insurance.
I see. Well, thank you, Ms. Riley.
Certainly.
Any additional questions or comments?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Councilman Catch.
wait, yeah, thank you very much. Laura, hi. Can you tell me, hi, can you tell me what the one facility that has lost its, what, license or whatever, what is the deficiency? Do you have any idea?
I'm not sure that we're talking about the same thing. They were just not in good standing with the State Office of Assessment and Taxation. And
Oh, okay.
that was because they had asked for an extension on their filing because they personally had extended the filing of their income tax. And so they needed to get that extension from the state office. But that has been corrected. We've been told we're waiting for the paperwork tomorrow.
So the health department wasn't involved in this. Okay, thank you.
No, we would
Thank you.
not contract with anyone who's not in good standing with the State Office of Healthcare Quality either.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Right. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms. Rogers.
just want to know that the oversight for these facilities in terms of licensure and, you know, the use of this money does come from the state level. The Office of Healthcare Quality is responsible. Now, county level may get into it for some specialized reasons, but licensure is at the state level.
Okay, any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, thank you very much, Ms. Riley. Next, we'll move on to page 50. Mr. James Benjamin Esquire, Resolution 6821.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the council, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Resolution 68-21 seeks approval of the continuation of the local state of emergency initially declared by the county executive on March 13th, 2020 in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. On March 13, 2020, the county executive declared a state of emergency existing in Baltimore County due to COVID-19. And on March 16, 2020, the county council authorized the continuation of that state of emergency with the approval of resolution 37-20. The council has subsequently authorized the continuation of the state of emergency, most recently with the approval of resolution 54-21, which is set to expire on June 9th, 2021. Resolution 68-21 declares it is likely the state of emergency will continue beyond June 9th, 2021, and authorizes the continuation of the state of emergency for an additional 30 days beyond June 9th, 2021, ending July 9th, 2021, or when the county executive declares an end to the state of emergency, whichever occurs first. A state of emergency was proclaimed by Governor Hogan on March 5th, 2020, as you'll recall, and was most recently renewed on May 12th, 2021. So the state of emergency issued by Governor Hogan is still in effect. Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to fiscal matter number 1. Mr. Richardson?
Thank you, sir.
Sure. Mr. Richardson, page 18.
I think he's having some connection issues. Hold on for a second. Lawrence, maybe if you turn your camera off, it might help with the issue.
Mr. Richardson? Okay, we'll come back to you, Mr. Richardson. We'll move on to page 51. Ms. Melissa Hop, Resolution 6921.
Good afternoon, council members.
Good afternoon.
I am happy to request approval for a supplemental appropriation and authorization for non-local funds. CCBC was fortunate to receive 3 batches of stimulus funding. The first batch has been spent, and we had expected that we would be spending the second batch in fiscal year 22. But then the Department of Education issued new regulations and gave us a window of opportunity that expires June 30th of 21 in order to claim lost revenue. That's about $12 million to us. And so we are seeking the approval to be able to expend those non-local funds in fiscal year 21 rather than in fiscal year 22.
Okay, thank you so very, very much. As always, we appreciate the great work that you do at the community college and the great value you provide to the citizens. Are there any questions or comments? Thank you very much, Ms. Hop. And now we'll move back. I see we have Mr. Richardson. We back, Mr. Richardson?
I think so. Can you hear me now? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Chairman Jones, members of the council. The administration is requesting approval of a budget appropriation transfer of special funding in the amount of $891,173. This is a technical BAT requested by the Maryland Department of Health due to some changes in their state reporting requirements. This funding will be moving from our substance abuse federal block grant to our substance abuse general treatment grant. The funding would be used for our peer recovery specialist services and our substance use disorder assessments, and also it funds our peer recovery support services for individuals incarcerated in Baltimore County's detention center.
Any questions or comments? Any of the members? Hearing none. Thank you very much, Mr. Richardson. We'll move on to page 11. Bill 51-21, introduced by myself, which basically changed the voting, changed the qualifications for an individual able to run for county council from 25 to 21. Early on, we sent a lot of information to the other council members. When we first embarked on this, we looked at every other jurisdiction in the state and what their qualifications were. And at the time, the only ones that were still at 25, which was because we our charter had required us to have the same qualifications as the state senator. And that's where 25 came from. But right now, as it stands, as I understand, the only people that still have 25 years of age, everybody else is younger, are us, Howard County, and Anne Arundel County. Everyone else is much lower. So I'm thinking 21 years of age is a reasonable number, and that number will be put on the ballot for the citizens to choose. Are there any questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So thank you for introducing this bill. I think it's a good bill, and I'd like to be added. I'm happy to be added as a co-sponsor.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? Okay, do we have any speakers, Ms. Belcastro?
Yes, we do, Chair. We have 3 speakers this afternoon. And our first speaker is Rainer Reinhardt. Are you there?
Yes, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. My name is Rainer Reinhardt. I've lived in Baltimore County for all 20 years of my life. I believe that representation is meant to be reflective. When we look at our leaders, we should be able to see someone that looks like us. And for young people, this is extremely rare. Regardless of youth activism, engagement, and education, there still exist barriers of entry for young people into our political process. And on the county and local level, where we want our best community leaders to hold office, it is awfully strange to me that we exclude an entire demographic of potentially qualified candidates. Some may look at youth as a disadvantage. Perhaps that's why we still have a current age requirement of 25. However, diversity in our leadership is paramount, and a young person's perspective on our community is too important to ignore. At age 21, a potential candidate would not only have quite recent experience in our school systems, but also a unique understanding of the socioeconomic struggles that our youngest generations are facing and will continue to face. Our county council must be held accountable to young people, and without the presence of such young people in leadership, the divide between youth and establishment will only widen. 25 aligns with the age of a recent college graduate, which to me implies some qualification of higher education. This age requirement ignores a large amount of our community leaders who are not or have not pursued higher education. Perhaps they are tradesmen, like mechanics or electricians, who too have valuable and important opinions on our government. We ought to be welcoming such people into politics, not barring them from entry simply because of their youth. Young people, 21 through 24, are engaged in our community at almost every level, if not all. They work and pay taxes, they rent and own properties, they can have children in our school systems and daycares, but our county charter continues to deny them the opportunity to run for office. Now, the passing of this bill won't guarantee a charter change. That would be up to the voters, exactly how it should be. Voting against this bill would be an effort to override the will of the people. I believe it is up to the members of this county to decide whether they'd like to widen the pool of potential candidates, and I believe that they are 100% capable of making that decision for themselves. With that, please vote in favor of Bill 5121, and thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, Ms. Belcastro.
Our next speaker is Ruben Amaya. Are you there, sir?
Hello, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you to the members of the council for the time to speak with all of you today. And thank you to Chairman Jones for proposing this piece of important legislation. As just mentioned before with the past speaker, with Rainer, what just mentioned, it really is about making sure that we make our democracy reflective of who is participating in it. By lowering the age of who can run for office, it really will dive into a population of our constituency that really wants to engage in the political process, specifically in wanting to serve their constituents. As Councilman Jones mentioned, we are only one of 3 jurisdictions that have this, and I think as a society grows and progresses, we need to make sure that our laws and our policies reflect that. And by lowering this age, it allows for our constituents, especially our younger constituents, to get involved in politics so that they can craft policy that is reflective of the times we are in. I think it really helps ensure that we have a healthy and strong and stable democracy for years to come. And especially because this piece of legislation at the end of the day will be determined by the people of Baltimore County. And if the voters at the end of the day decide that this piece of legislation should be changed in the charter, then I think that's exactly what democracy is all about. And so I really encourage every member in the council to vote in favor for this piece of legislation and allow the voters of Baltimore County to make the ultimate decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruben, and congratulations on your candidacy for House of Delegates. Ms. Belcastro, next speaker, please. Ms. Belcastro, you are muted.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Sure.
We have one more speaker who registered. However, they're not on our attendee list. Her name is Nisha McCoy. We do have one person calling in, but I don't know if that is her, but her name is not on our attendance list.
You want to check with the person that's calling in and let us know?
Or
We
is
want
this
to make
Ms.
sure everybody
McCoy?
have opportunity.
Ms. McCoy? No, I don't think that's her.
Okay, if she calls
If
back,
if
She
she
calls
reaches
back.
out to me during the meeting, I'll alert you.
all right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
yeah, I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor, please.
thank you very much. So noted, you're added. Next, we'll move on to page 13, Resolution 52-21. Mr. Crandall? Councilman Crandall.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not on video. I think this is a bill, not a
Yes,
resolution.
Bill, I'm sorry, Bill 52-21.
Yeah. So I think that the council will recall that we passed Bill 9720 last year, and it was an effort to regulate some problem carnivals in Baltimore County. If you remember, we had a long discussion about some unintended consequences of the bill. We were able to amend the bill. However, it came to light during this past year as the county was starting to open up and grant more gathering permits that the county, under the legislation that we passed, the county would have the ability to take 60 days to turn around a gathering permit. Now, that 60-day period is fine when you're talking about a large event that draws thousands of people, and it's an event like a traveling carnival that needs a proper security plan and needs the appropriate agencies to do due diligence to make sure that that gathering permit should be permitted. However, 9720 also lumps in events like a bull roast that would be held at a VFW or a Moose Lodge or an American Legion or various other licensed catering halls that have these events, and the organizations that would hold these events at these particular catering halls would only have to get a permit if they were having some type of gaming, money wheels, raffles, laydowns. We've all been to those types of events where these things occur. If an organization is renting out a hall and wants to do this type of gaming in order to raise money, they're required by the county to get a gathering permit. The problem is that some applicants have been told that, well, we have 60 days to process that permit, where traditionally the time period has been 14 days. So I think in an effort to regulate one thing, we placed an undue burden on another. So the bill that I'm proposing, or the amendment to the bill that I'm proposing, would fix that. Now, in our attempt to fix it, and with working with Mr. Phillips and Mr. Bostwick, it has also come to light that PAI and the police department have some concerns with the language in the bill. I'm not really sure where their concerns are coming from, because I think that it is drafted appropriately. But out of courtesy, if we can't come to language that works for everybody by our next legislative session, it would be my intention to make a motion to extend the life of the bill. So that's where we are with it. Had a discussion with the administration today. It seems as if we can find common ground on this, but I just don't think that we should be asking a catering hall or a soccer program or a rec council to have to wait 60 days to turn around a very simple permit for an event that has been taking place for most of our lifetimes. So that's the intent of the bill, and appreciate any discussion, but I think I've laid it out as far as where we are with it and the concerns that the administration may have on the current language. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Crandall. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll move on to page 15, Resolution 53-21. Councilman Quirk and Marks, restrictions on parking large trucks in designated bike lanes. Councilman Quirk? Give me 1 second. Councilman Quirk?
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm just having a little technical issue here. Yeah, Bill 53-21 amends the restrictions on parking large trucks to clarify the prohibited locations. Specifically, it prohibits tractor, trailer, combination tractor, trailer from parking or standing in such a manner that any part of the vehicle or trailer fully or partially obstructs a designated bike lane. It doesn't apply to service vehicles or vehicles operated by the county or public utility or emergency vehicles or police or fire or voluntary ambulance service. Any violations of this restriction subject to a fine of $100, and each day a violation exists constitutes a separate violation. And this has actually become an issue in my district. We are, as I think the whole county council knows, we're having some real problems with tractor trailers and parking all over the place and any place, including bike lanes and designated bike lanes. And so unfortunately, this bill that I never thought I'd have to write, that's where the genesis came from. I want to thank Councilman Marks, open to any questions. But again, it's just tractors, trailers, or a tractor, a trailer, or a tractor trailer. That's all it applies to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry about the delay.
It's okay. Councilman Quirk, I did have one question. Would this apply to somebody stopping to unload, say, food in a restaurant, like a delivery truck?
Now, just if they're parking. I mean, if there's unless Bostwick says otherwise, I think this is just for tractor trailers that are actually parked. I mean, if they're temporarily hazard lights on, things like that, I don't think it applies. Unless Adam or Bostwick says they do.
Okay.
I think Mr. Quirk and Mr. Chairman, I think as written, it does include parking or standing, and I think standing would mean, perhaps just a temporary situation. So if necessary, if directed, we could certainly put together a minor amendment that would exclude, a vehicle parked, or standing for the purpose of loading or unloading, that type of thing.
Yeah, and I'd be totally fine with that if the council wants to do that. That makes sense to me.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Yes, I'd like to be added to that bill, please.
Thank you, Councilman Bevins, Councilwoman Bevins. Any additional questions or comments?
I don't know if Councilman Marks wanted to chime in or not, and he's co-sponsor as well.
Probably not. Any additional questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'd like to pile on here and also co-sponsor it as well.
Okay. No more questions or comments? We will move on to, I believe the last item of the day is page 16, Resolution 54-21. Councilman Marks is pulling that legislation or pulling that bill and will reintroduce it next legislative session. Are there any additional questions or comments from today? Thank you very much, everyone. Have yourself a wonderful day.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you. Yes, wait a minute.
Before we adjourn, I just wanted to let the public, let everyone out there in TV land, so to speak, know that the Redistricting Commission, the 2021 edition of the Councilmanic Redistricting Commission, will be holding its first public hearing this evening at 7 p.m. It'll be a virtual hearing just like this one at 7 p.m. We advertised the hearing schedule in the newspaper for several weeks during the month of May. We've had a notice in that yellow alert box on our website for a number of weeks. The link is active on the County Council's virtual sessions and hearings page. And if people wish to testify at that hearing, there is the council registration form that they can fill out. So we encourage anyone who's interested, particularly in Councilmanic Districts 1, 2, and 4, that's the west side of the county, to attend tonight's hearing and sign up and testify until 6 p.m. this evening. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. Any additional questions or comments? All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.